give a brief outline for this availability. For the sake of your colleagues, we'll ask that you please limit yourself to one question and a follow-up so we can take questions from as many individuals as possible. And if you have a second question, you may raise your hand again and we'll come back to you if time permits. Before we take our first question, we'll begin with some opening remarks here from Canucks General Manager Jim Benning.
Okay, thank you for joining today's call. Before we get started on the questions, I'd like to start with this message. I can safely say this season has been the biggest challenge since I've been in the business for 40 years as a manager, scout, and player. From the collective challenges every organization faced to what we dealt with specifically as a team, this was a season like no other. I want to thank our players, their families, and our staff who all made sacrifices and faced challenges this whole season. On behalf of the Aquilini family, hockey operations, and coaching staff, thank you. As for the results, no one is more disappointed than me. I'm accountable and responsible as a general manager. I care about this team. We all do. Our owners, coaches, players, and staff all want the best for the team. They want to win. What we saw last year in the playoffs is where we want to return to. We're going to take a forward step again. We believe in our promising group of players. It's an important offseason. We need to make changes. The work has already begun. Francesco and the Aquilini family want to win and care so much. They have committed to providing us with the resources needed to be successful. Having Travis re-signed as head coach was a critical step. Travis and his staff have contributed immensely to the development and the success of our team, and we're grateful they are committed and dedicated. Among our priorities this offseason is to re-sign Petey and Quinn. We also will be exploring trade options, free agency, and buyouts to help strengthen our group as a means to have more balance scoring next season. Lastly, to our fans, I want you to know we appreciate your passion and support. Ultimately, it's what drives this team, and we can't wait to have you back again at Rogers Arena next season. Thank you.
Okay, as we move now into the Q&A portion of our availability, just a reminder to please use the raise hand function if you have a question. We'll take our first question here from Brendan Batchelor, Sportsnet 650.
Hi guys, thanks for doing this today. I'll start with you, Jim. You talked about how important it was to bring Travis back. Just from your perspective, your thoughts on the relationships he's built with his players here, because we heard so many of them speak so highly of him yesterday.
Yeah, well, Travis, it was important that, we got him re-signed, we got him back in the fold. All these young players that we have on the team, they started out under Travis. He has close relationships with them. They like him, they trust him. When Travis is teaching them the right things to do and how to play, like the players all trust Travis. So I think, that's the first step in this process where, I look at other successful teams where they've hired a young coach and he kind of grew with their team. And, that's where I see Travis, with these young players we have in place. We're going to have to add more players to support these young players. But I see, Travis continuing to grow with our group of young players we have.
And Travis, what did it mean to you to hear the way some of your players spoke so positively about your time with the organization yesterday?
It means a lot. Anytime you hear feedback from players, you can't help but it matter and mean something to you. I think it goes both ways. When I came here 4 years ago, I talked about wanting to build something here, and I'm committed to that. And that was a big part of me staying committed to the organization, committed to the players, and committed to winning. I'm grateful that we got something done. I'm thankful, and I'm really excited about it.
We'll take our next question from Farhan Lalji, TSN.
Travis, throughout this process, were you ever concerned, even in recent weeks, that this might not get done and that you might have to look at other opportunities?
Maybe a little. I mean, you know, it got down to the wire, and obviously it was important to me to get done, important to the team to get done. And it was a different season as far as COVID and how it affects things financially. There was a process to it, but ultimately, you know, I wanted to be here, and but I'm just thankful that we did get it done.
It's been reported that it's a 2-year extension, which probably speaks to how much you did want to be here. And the fact that you had to wait this long, I know it's been reported that it's because of the financial concerns around the pandemic. So fast forward a year from now, theoretically, after next year, you would then be looking to further extend. I know Jim has talked about wanting to make changes, which are going to be challenging given the cap situation. So are there any concerns about this year determining future extensions and maybe whether or not you're going to be in that kind of position to succeed, if that makes sense?
I'm trying to wrap my head around what you asked.
It might be a huge challenge to improve significantly, to improve the roster significantly this year. It might be a challenge. If it is, after this year, you'd theoretically be negotiating the next extension. So are there concerns about that?
No, I'm first of all, I wouldn't have signed back here if I didn't believe in what we're doing and what we're capable of doing and where we're going. I want to win, and that's why I signed back here. I didn't sign back here just to get 2 more years of coaching in the NHL. I know Jim, I know our ownership are committed to winning, and hey, we own this season. It didn't go the way we wanted to. I can understand how people would be frustrated with the year. Our group needs to evaluate. We need to make changes. But there's only one reason I signed back here is because I believe that we can win with this group, and not just the players or coaches, but the ownership and management.
Next up is Barry DeLay, Global TV.
This one is for Jim. I guess the line all year has been we holding off talks with Travis because of the pandemic. Yet at the same time, you had new contracts for Demko and Tanner Pearson. What was the difference between that you did sign players, and Travis, obviously the money wouldn't come until next year anyway. Can you just explain that situation?
Yeah, well, we don't comment in the media on like contract negotiations. We made Travis an offer at the start of the year. During the course of the year, we would go back and forth and, talk about it. I guess as it came down to the end of the year here, we dived into a little bit harder, and, Travis, he had a decision to make if he wanted to come back, and, we got it done here at the end. So I'm grateful for that.
Given your cap crunch this year, is a lot of success going to be dependent? Maybe this is for Travis. Is dependent on inner improvement from your core and especially your supporting cast?
Well, that'll be part of it. I know Jim stated that the team is committed to doing whatever it has to do to take care of the financial part to make sure our team improves, and that'll be part of it as well. There's a collaboration all the time. How do you get better? Obviously, drafting is part of it with bringing in young players, developing the players while they're here. I believe we have a lot of good young players with our team right now that are still improving. They're young. There's a maturing process through that. You look at the teams that play in the playoffs, even in the North Division, the top players that have been in the league a little bit longer than our group. Our young guys need to continue to improve, and that's going to be a vital part of it. And then there's the financial part of improving through free agency or trades, and all 3 of them will continue to be part of how our team improves.
We'll go next here to Ian McIntyre, Sportsnet.
Good morning, gentlemen. The first question is for Jim. A lot of the players this weekend, and Travis as well, has talked about how difficult the schedule was at the start this year. Antoine Roussel yesterday said it was ridiculous. You had 13 games in the first 21 days, and nobody played as many games as you in this division. And also, all the other teams had some sort of schedule break early on, which was important under the circumstances. Can you tell me why the club accepted the schedule that you did at the start of this season?
Because yeah, we don't have, Ian, like we don't have, what they do is they send us a schedule and what your schedule looks like, but we don't have the ability to see anybody else's schedule. So, you know, as far as we know, when we see the schedule, you know, everybody's kind of on that same schedule. So, you know, it was like 19, I'm not going to make excuses though. Now we're, you know, it is what it is. We had 19 games in 34 nights. It was a tough start. We had a tough finish at the end, but that season's over. We're looking forward. We want to be aggressive this summer, and we want to get back to being a playoff team again next year. So, you know, I'm not going to look back. It was a hard season. It was a long, hard season, something like I've never seen before as far as scheduling and all the different things that went into it, getting sick. And then even like coming out of being sick, like, you know, JT came out and, you know, I thought was real honest and stood up for the players. You know, what happened there is the NHL, you know, they're dealing with regular COVID. After 10 days, you know, with regular COVID, the players don't have symptoms, and then they make the schedule. What happened in this instance, we were dealing with a different, the P1 variant. After 10 days, our players were still having symptoms. And, you know, through the league, JT came out with a statement. And then, you know, we actually had a meeting the next morning with the league, the doctor from the league, the doctor from the PA, and our Dr. Bovard and John Sanderson, to explain to them that, hey, our players, you know, this is different than regular COVID. They're still really sick. They skated a couple practices and they were, you know, physically sick. Even a week or two after we were playing, after games, they'd have severe migraine headaches. We were dealing with something totally different than what, you know, other teams seen. The NHL recognized that. They changed our schedule around so, you know, we could get back up, ease back into, you know, playing that last stretch of games. So, you know, I'd like to thank the league and the PA, everybody getting involved to make that happen.
And you mentioned in your opening statement, you included buyouts as an option to try to improve the team for next year. Does that mean you have the authority to spend the money to make a buyout? Because it would be different than it seems what it was after last season.
Yeah, ownership has given us the resources to do whatever we need to do to get back to where we want to be next season, and that's a playoff team. So, you know, buyouts are going to be part of our strategy this summer to save cap space. Like I said earlier, we're going to be aggressive in the trade front, and, you know, in free agency. We want to add speed and depth to our forward group. I thought maybe this year some of the players that we thought were going to take the next step in their development, you know, some 23, 24-year-old guys that we thought would, you know, be able to kind of, you know, keep moving forward and taking more responsibility on. That didn't happen. That's on me. Going forward, we're going to make sure that, you know, we have these good young core pieces in place, that we surround them with, you know, some veteran guys or some guys in that age group that can help them keep getting better. We need more scoring depth. So we're going to work on all those things in the off season.
Next up, we'll go to Gemma Carson-Smith, the Canadian Press.
Hi, guys. Jim, there's been a vocal segment of this fan base who isn't happy with the job that you've done this season, despite all of the challenges. What do you have to say to them to assure them that things will be different going forward?
Well, it's been a challenging year. Like, you know, I guess when we look right back at, you know, before the pandemic, before we even paused in the first place, you know, we were at a general managers meeting, and, you know, the cap, you know, they were forecasting for this year was going to be between 85 and $88 million. So, you know, we had the space to do what we needed to do, you know, last summer. A week later, we got shut down with the pandemic, and, you know, and then came back, played in the bubble. But, you know, coming out of the bubble, I thought the bubble was a great experience for our young players to play in playoff hockey, to do all that. coming out of the bubble with a flat cap then happening this year, we had some tough decisions to make. We have, going forward, we knew we had Demko and Petey and Quinn that needed to be re-signed, and we got Thatch done. We're going to work hard here this next little bit to get, Quinn and Petey signed, and then go from there. We need to build around these guys. These are core pieces that are important pieces that you need to win, but they need the continued support, throughout the lineup to get to where we want to get to.
And Travis, obviously, you folks have all been through so much this season, perhaps you more than most. Can you talk about what the emotions have been like and what it's been like mentally, and how it feels to finally have this one piece of business off your plate today?
Well, I know a lot of the players talked yesterday about this season and how hard it was, and yeah, there's no hiding it. It was a different season. It was a hard season at times, but again, sometimes hard things, you go through them and you look back and you grow from hard times as well. And I think when you're going through it, sometimes it felt like a lot for our players, but a lot of teams had to go through it as well. Again, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. There's a lot of people in the world right now with COVID that are going through difficult times, and we're still fortunate to be working and playing and coaching in the NHL. So at the end of the day, it's still things are okay. But in our world, in the hockey world, yeah, it was a little bit difficult at times, but that's okay. I think Jim said it earlier. We're not going to sit here and dwell on the past. We're looking forward and how we're going to make our team better. But you learn a lot when you win, when you have success, when things are going well in your life. But you also learn a lot when you're going through tough times as well.
We'll go next to Thomas Drance, The Athletic.
Jim, a lot of the club's messaging today, including your direct comments on several occasions in this presser, have focused on returning your club to the playoffs. Is that a high enough bar for this club's ambition? And are you able to explain why the focus of comments from ownership on down today are not on building a team capable of contending credibly for the Cup?
Yeah, well, Thomas, I think the first step to compete for the Cup is you need to make the playoffs, right? And, you've seen when we went in the bubble last year, we were in the playoffs, we won a couple rounds, but, that's the first, is you need to, make the moves to make your team competitive, to be a playoff team. Our core players are still young guys, and, the playoff experience they got last year was great for them, but, we need to figure out a way to get in first. And then once you get into the playoffs, if you have good goaltending, you play with the right structure, we should have a good power play. We have the players to have a good power play. And then, anything can happen in the playoffs, as we've seen last year. So, that's the first step for us. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is to win a Stanley Cup with this group of players that, we're drafting, developing. But, first thing is you need to make the playoffs and then keep going from there.
And this is sort of for both of you, and I know needs to be asked delicately because I'm sure a lot of this is still in progress. But for Jim in particular, are you able to discuss, any other planned changes to your hockey operations group? Additionally, are you able to discuss your plan for fleshing out the rest of the coaching staff around Travis? And will efforts be made to return the same group that your club had this season?
Yeah, so, the first step in this process was getting Travis signed. So we got that done. The next now 3 or 4 days, we're going to talk to Travis, go over the coaching staff, review everybody, and then, make them offers. As far as the hockey ops staff, same thing. At the end of the year, it's about review, and we're exploring everything. We want to get better in every aspect of what we do. But we just finished the season, and as we move forward here, we'll get that all figured out.
We'll go next to Jason Bruff, Sportsnet 650.
Hey, Jim, it's been 7 years on the job now, 5 missed playoffs, some challenging times. I imagine this season has been the most challenging. I don't know if you've had much time to ponder But what are some of the big lessons that you've learned on the job during your time in Vancouver?
Well, it's, like this year wasn't easy. The pandemic, given, like some of the things that were brought up, the schedule we had, our group getting sick. Out of the 7 years, this probably was the toughest year, to be a general manager with all the different issues that you were dealing with, even outside of the hockey. So there was a lot of, stress and anxiety that comes with that. But I think, we got through it as a group. The adversity of having a hard season like this, I believe, will make us better going forward. But, we're going to have to add pieces, and have more depth and have better players. And we're looking to do that. We're trying to build a team that can compete and win a Stanley Cup. And, if you look at, some of these other teams, sometimes it's a long process. And we're going to add another real good player in this year's draft to our group. And I really believe we do have a lot of pieces in place that when we finally win the cup that are in place right now. So, we're going to continue to do the work. Ultimately, that's what we're in the business for, is to win the cup. We got to just keep, plowing ahead, doing the right things, internally, working with our players, developing our players, and we need to make the playoffs next year. That's the goal right now, as we go into the off season, and from ownership to the general manager to the coach, and that's what's going to be, the goal for our players as we start in the fall.
We talk a lot about players and where they need to improve. We might say someone's got to get stronger. He's got to learn the defensive zone, all that old stuff. Where, as a hockey department, do you see any specific areas where you would like to get better, whether it's cap allocation, communication, whatever? I mean, there's a lot of elements to your job. Any areas where you think, wow, we could probably do a better job here?
I think, us moving our farm team to Abbotsford, I think is a fantastic move. To be able to stay on top of the development of our players down there, to have the interaction between, our strength and conditioning coaches in Vancouver with the Abbotsford people, and all the different phases of that. Being able to show up at the games next year and watch the players play and develop, I just think that it was an excellent decision by Francesco, and I think it's going to pay dividends for our organization moving forward.
We'll go next to Patrick Johnston, Vancouver Province.
Jim, have any players asked to be traded?
No.
And at what point did you learn about the allegations against Jake Virtanen, and when do you expect the independent investigator to make their report?
Yeah, so let me just talk about that and go through kind of the process. I know, there was, like there's some talk about why we weren't, more communicative with the media when we were going through all that. So what happened, the girl put her blog out there. A reporter, was going to write a story. They, communicated that to us. Chris Gear, our chief legal counsel, he got involved with it. When we took the allegations seriously. So, the first step in the process is we put out a statement. I talked to Jake and told him that, he's going to have to take a leave from the team. And then, over the course of the next couple days, the girl filed a police report. So then it became police business. So I'm not going to comment. I don't have any idea. The police are doing the investigation now. It's in their hands. When they, let Chris know what's going on, that's when we'll have news. So I have no idea when we're going to get that news.
We'll go next to Rob Williams, Daily Hive.
Yeah, a question for Jim. What is your top priority in free agency or the trade route this summer regarding the types of players you're looking to add? So, in other words, what do you think you're missing that you'll be able to add in the short term here?
Well, I think we need more speed up front. We need, a deeper, I'd like to see, I thought Niels Hoglander, for a first-year player, came in, had an excellent season. He's only going to get better. When Vasily Podkolzin's done, with the World Championships, we're going to get him signed. I think he's going to be, a lot like Podkolzin. He can come in and help us next year. But we still need to add some players with speed, some veteran leadership, speed and depth, scoring to our forward group. I think that's going to be an important for our team to get to where we need to be. Is it's going to be about speed and more scoring depth. And you can ask Travis his thoughts on that, but from that's kind of what we talk about, is that we want to be a 3-line scoring team, and we need to add more players to get there.
Is Alex Edler a player you'd like to re-sign this summer? And, at age 35, he was a top 4 defenseman for you this year. Do you think he can be a top 4 defenseman for you next year if you're willing to sign him?
Yeah. So, Alex has been a special player, throughout his career with the Vancouver Canucks. And we haven't had any exit meetings with the players yet. The season just finished. We're going to sit down next week, do Zoom calls with all the players, get their thoughts, including Alex. So I talked to him. I see he came out in the media the other day and said he wants to play, but I'll have a conversation, with him this next week, and, we'll just talk about what's next.
Next is Ben Kuzma, Vancouver Province.
Good morning, gents. I have one for each of you. I'll start with Travis. Travis, your captain spoke very passionately yesterday about the process of getting back to the playoffs, and that you can't really win with a 2-line team. He sort of made a plea for adding guys in your bottom 6. It was an interesting season in the sense that you had some waiver wire claims, you had a trade, you had guys who might work into that mix next year. What do you need in that bottom 6 mix next year, Travis?
Well, I mean, it was, when you look at our team, where we were last year in the bubble to where we were at the end of the year, there's probably 7 or 8 guys that were hurting out of the lineup for starters. So, when you have a year like we had this year compared to the year like that we had the year before, it makes it easy to say you've got to get better in a lot of areas. And to just sit here and just say, hey, we just need to make our bottom 6 better. Well, yeah, I mean, we got to make our team better. We're going to have to evaluate our team, which we will do after we get to decompress a little bit after the season and do a thorough evaluation of our group. And that's sitting and talking with Jim. It's talking with the coaches. It's going over areas that we need to improve in. And then it's committing to making the changes that we need. And, I like that Bo said we need to get that he talked like he did yesterday. I've said it all year. We want guys that just want to win and are willing to do whatever it takes to win. And it's not just the players, it's everyone in the organization. And that's the commitment you need going forward, and how you get better is with that commitment and that desire.
And one for you, Jim. Your support of Travis dates back to last fall when you publicly stated your support of him. In a normal circumstance, a general manager has the big hammer determining who's going to run his bench, but you also have a very involved ownership group, and one in particular person in Francesco. How did that process play out, Jim, in terms of understanding that you needed to retain Travis and you better get it done?
Well, Francesco, first of all, is very supportive of everything that we do. He's not unlike any other owner in the league where, we have to, present our case and explain to him our decisions, and this is why we want to do it. He's always really liked Travis. So as we were talking about, what's the best fit for our group next year going forward to get off to a good start, to get to where we need to be, I think, it was a decision that, he left to me, but, and with his support, we thought Travis is the best guy for that job. He has, great communication skills with our younger players. Our younger players still need to grow and get better. It's not just our bottom six guys, it's our top six guys too. On any given night this year, we're playing the Edmontons, the Dreisaitls, the McDavids, the Winnipegs with the Scheifeleys and the Connors, like the Torontos, like these guys, their top six guys are some of the best players in the league. So, our bottom six guys, we're going to make changes there and we're going to improve on that group. But I believe our top six guys need to get better next year too, if we're going to get to where we need to be.
Next up, we'll go to Jeff Patterson with The Athletic.
First question is for you, Jim. How aggressive will you be to capitalize on other teams with protection issues ahead of Seattle expansion?
Well, we're looking at everything. Our pro scouts have already, done their sheets for the mock draft and what that looks like. And, we'll continue to go over those sheets every day, have Zoom calls with them. And like I said, we're going to do our due diligence of talking to every team in the league. And if there's things that we can do to teams maybe that have, issues with expansion, we'll be talking to them and trying to figure it out. We have lots of work to do. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be an easy summer. We have a lot of work to do, and we've already started in on all that work.
And Travis, congrats on the deal. You've had the good fortune of working with a lot of really talented young players that the club has drafted here, and Vasily Podkolzin's going to be next. How much do you know of him? And can you just maybe explain a little bit to the fan base of how do you go about sort of figuring out where a guy is best slotted? Obviously, it worked out well for Höglander this year. You took a bit of a chance and put him in the top six, and he didn't look back. But how do you go about sort of determining sight unseen, where you're thinking about slotting a guy heading into a training camp?
Well, I think when it's sight unseen, much like Höglander, he's a good example. You have to trust the people that you work with. I think that's something that is vital in any, whether it's sports or business. You have to trust the people you work with on their judgment, their opinions, and and then you have to watch them close and try to get to know these players as well as you can, how strong they are physically, how strong they are mentally, because there are challenges that go along with it. And I think part of it is treating players. You can't treat each guy the same because they're different. And, when he gets here, we're definitely excited about him coming. From what I've heard, I can't wait to see him on the ice with our group, and we'll put him in a position to succeed and then make evaluations as we go forward.
Next up, we'll go to Chris Faber, Canucks Army.
Hey guys, my question is for Jim. Jim, earlier in the year, you talked about this team potentially being 2 years away from competing. And today you're talking about the team getting back in the playoffs next year. I'm wondering, is it two different things to look at a team competing for a Stanley Cup, or are you guys just looking to compete for the playoffs as soon as next year? And like you said, see what happens.
I think that's the first step. Like the first step is, making the playoffs. And then once you make the playoffs, then anything can happen. Like I think your young players, they get experience every year. They learn more and more. And as they, continue to physically and mentally mature as players, then, they get better. They understand, what the playoffs are all about, how hard it is, what it means. And, you look at teams that have won the cup, like, it's taken time. It's taken time where they've, developed that confidence in winning a round, winning a round or two. Sometimes, they have hard losses along the way, and it makes them stronger and more resilient the next year when they're in the playoffs. So, I believe it's a process, but I believe first and foremost, it starts with making the playoffs. And then, as your team continues to grow and get better and more confident, then that leads to competing for the cup.
And we've seen you trade draft picks to get into positions like the JT Miller trade to get your team closer to the playoffs. Is that something that this group will be exploring this offseason, or are you still looking to hold on to draft picks for the long run?
Well, we're going to explore all of our options. I'm not going to sit here today and start figuring out what that looks like. But, if something comes up and it makes sense for us to try to figure out, that's what we're going to do. Like, we're not going to close ourselves off on anything. There's lots of work to be done. We're going to do the work, and if, things make sense, we'll look at doing, stuff like that.
Next up is Daniel Wagner with Vancouver is Awesome.
Jim, earlier in the season, you said that you ran out of time with re-signing Tyler Toffoli. Did you learn anything from that experience that you can put into practice this offseason to make sure that type of situation doesn't happen again?
Well, it's like I said earlier, it wasn't so much running out of time. What had happened is the landscape shifted. We were going from, possibly an $85 to $88 million cap to an 81.5 cap. We had to make hard decisions, knowing that, we have Thatcher Demko that we needed to resign, Quinn Hughes and Petey. So, we made tough decisions at the time. Like, it is what it is now, but, going forward, we're going to get these guys signed. They're going to be the core group of, our what I think is going to be a Stanley Cup winning team. And, we're going to get these guys signed. We're going to move forward. We're going to add the pieces we need to add. We're going to be aggressive. And we're not happy with the way this year, happened. I thought, we could be more competitive, but it didn't happen. So, we're going to move forward, and we're going to do the things that we need to do to be committed to win.
You've talked about needing better forward depth than the bottom six, but one of the issues that seems to have been an issue for several years now is the blue line. And just heading into next year, you'll have Myers, Schmidt, and Hughes once he resigns, but those will be your only experienced NHL defensemen under contract. What is your plan to round out and improve the blue line?
Well, we're going to, we got some UFA guys that, we want to talk to. I thought Travis Hamanic was a good fit in our group. We'd like to try to bring him back if we can. We're going to sit down and talk to Alex Edler here next week. I thought Jack Rathbone, when he played, he never looked out of place. He was, he's a good skater. He moves the puck with conviction. I thought the games he played, he looked good. So, but we're going to have to, it's not unlike the forward group. We're going to have to add some D-men here to be more competitive next year.
We'll return now to Ian McIntyre with Sportsnet.
Jim, you talked about beginning the process in the next few days of making offers to your assistant coaches. Of course, they're now in a position where they can just wait for an offer from somebody else as well. How concerned are you about losing Ian Clark, considering the importance of the position and what you've invested in Thatcher Demko?
Well, Ian's an important part of our coaching staff. And I'm, the first step, like I said, was getting Travis done. And now that we got his contract finished, we're going to have conversations. Obviously, we want to bring Ian back. He's a big part of, the success of our goalies. After I get through with this today, I'm going to talk to Ian later this afternoon and, continue to figure out if there's something that can be done to bring him back. We want him back. And, I'm hoping that, he decides he's going to come back. But, and then the other assistant coaches, we're going to, continue to talk about, to work through with Travis. And then, in the next course of the next 3 or 4 days a week, we'll figure out that group and get them signed.
We'll go next to Farhan Lalji, TSN.
Jim, you've talked about wanting to be aggressive in free agency, and among the priorities, you've talked about veteran leadership. You've done that before, been aggressive at free agency and prioritized that type of player, and it has at times led to some inefficient contracts in the bottom six. With that in mind, will you change that process a bit, or maybe evaluate differently the types of players you're looking for if you have the money to spend or are able to clear that space? Or yeah, I just want to ask you, comparing it to what you've done to this point, where you're at, if it changes the approach this time.
Yeah, like we want to add, like, guys that can support, supplement our top nine forwards. We want to try to have 3 scoring lines. So, we're looking at a different type of player here. We're looking at, players that drive offense, that, we can play, with our other, offensive players that, because we need to score more. If we need to spend more time in the other team's end. We need to, we can't be on our heels. We got to be better, in the middle of the ice. We can't have so many high danger scoring chances against. But I think if we have better offensive players, I think it starts by spending more time in the other team's end. That's the start to where we want to get to.
And for either one of you, as the season progressed, there were a number of players that weren't here at the start of the year that wound up getting added, be it need based because of injuries or what have you. I mean, the Travis Boyds, the Jimmy Vesey's, the players that got called up from the minors. There were a number of guys that were added, Highmore, so on. Did any of those types of players surprise you to the point where you think they can provide a lot of value next year?
I thought they all played well. It's whenever you come to a new team, a new system, it's new opportunity. I'm not going to go through every player and talk about each guy that came through. I think once we go through and talk about each player individually as a staff and review our group, there will be a couple guys that have surprised us and probably played better than we thought. And those are part of the decisions, what players come back next year. That's all part of that evaluation at the end of the year.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions here. We'll go first to Patrick Johnston.
Jim, what is the sort of status of things with the Sedins? What roles might they fill? And if they do come on board, how does that affect John Weisbrod?
Well, it has no effect on John Weisbrod. He's my assistant. He's really good at what he does. I lean on him a lot, so it has no effect. The Sedins, when they were players, we all know, they were great players. They're great people. They work hard. They work extremely hard. As they were retiring, when I had them up in my office, I said to them, like, listen, I don't know what the next step is for you guys, but at some point, if you want to come back and you want to be part of, what we're doing around here and contribute, then, their idea was they were going to take a couple years off and spend it with their families. I think, their kids are getting older now. And so, we continue to have conversations with them. And, that'll be, up to them as to, when or if they want to do that. And if they do, we all know, what great additions they would be to the organization, from the type of people they are and how hard they work. So, I'll just leave it at that for now, but, that's kind of where we're at.
And Travis, having the team in Abbotsford, will that affect, sort of how you manage your job at all? Is there sort of more integration, I suppose, with the coaching staff there? Will you try to get out and see how the players are out there doing, or are you already busy enough?
No, I think it'll be good. I think once we get back to a regular schedule during the season, there's always a regular season. You have a lot more time. Looking back last year, I don't know if we ever had a day where we had more than 1 practice. I think that happened once between games. But during a regular season, a lot of times you have 2, 3, sometimes you might have 4 days between games. It'll give us a chance to go out and A, sit with the coaches sometimes, B, watch the players, watch a practice. I've talked to other people around the league when they have their minor league team in the same city, and there are a lot of advantages to it.
We'll take our last question today from Gemma Carson-Smith, Canadian Press.
I've got a couple of clarifications, probably both for Jim. First of all, can you clarify, we've heard reports that the deal with Travis is for 2 years. Is that a correct report?
Yes.
2 years. Okay. And on the Virtanen situation, I understand that there's probably not much you can say, but I'm wondering if you can clarify whether there's an independent investigation going on parallel to the police matter, or if the independent investigation has been pushed off for now.
No, it's still going on. The answer is yes to that.
Okay, that's all the time we have for today, so we'll conclude our availability here. Once again, we'd like to thank General Manager Jim Benning and Head Coach Travis Green for joining us this morning, and thanks to everyone else for being with us as well. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.